Hello, and welcome to the Trans Agenda, a podcast by Trans Clinique. I'm your host, Nico, and I'm a trans man, and my pronouns are he and they. Every Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we'll be right here talking about the Trans Agenda. In this podcast, we'll delve into the unique challenges and experiences of trans folks, highlighting the voices of those who have lived it themselves. We'll explore issues such as navigating medical and legal systems, finding acceptance within family and community, and combating discrimination and violence. Our guests will share their personal stories and expertise, providing valuable insights and perspectives on this often misunderstood aspect of the human experience. Join us as we strive to educate, inform, and advocate for trans rights and visibility. Hello, and welcome to the Trans Agenda. My name is Nico Storman, and I'm your host.
My name is Za'Rina.
And tell us a little bit about yourself, Za'Rina. What are your pronouns? What do you do? Tell us.
Okay, so my pronouns are she and her, and I'm a Black trans woman, very proud. Right now I'm moonlighting as a social worker, but I also am a tech girl and a software developer. So I started my own business. As of last month, I have an LLC. I'll talk more about it later. And then I'm also a music artist and music producer and DJ, and yeah.
Sounds amazing. We have plenty to dig into. I love it. Where shall we start? Let's see. Well, I think we should start with the personal. So, as a Black trans woman, you're very proud, right? What was your journey like coming up? How did you find yourself?
I kind of I feel like I always knew that I was trans, but I did not understand what it was, because I was just oh my god, I feel like a woman, but I'm also in this male body at the time, and I'm just but I'm also boys, so it was just kind of weird. And then I finally moved away from home, because I feel the town that I grew up in was just very conservative. And then when I moved to New Orleans, I literally came out 6 months later. It was kind of I watch all of those documentaries. You watch Sex Change Hospital with your mom, and you're just kind of oh my god, that's so crazy. And you're just that could be me, a little bit. And yeah, I feel that's how I found myself. I ended up in New Orleans with all these queer people, and it was trans people. I really never kind of hung out with a trans person outside of two instances. And one was this girl who I had known forever, and it was she had transitioned when we were really young, and she moved away. She moved to the Bay, which is funny. And the other trans woman was this older lady who left her whole family and everything. It was one of those stories where she transitioned at 50. She had a whole family, and that's all I really had. So I did not really kind of align with it, because the other girl was a white girl. So I was just I don't know. And that was when people were transitioning with birth control.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's the dark ages of
so
transitioning.
How did you begin to see yourself in the trans narrative?
I think the thing that happened to me is that when I moved to New Orleans, I met all of these beautiful women at queer parties, and there was just something different about them, and I did not really know that they were all trans until it was girl, I'm trans, and we would talk and kiki. And I feel my whole life everyone has just called me my first name girl, or referred to me by she, her pronouns, even in my family up until I transitioned, but we ain't gotta talk about that. And yeah, I finally saw myself in these other Black trans women who had deeper voices, because I also was really dysphoric about my voice, and I was just I feel nobody has a deep voice, and I probably have dysphoria and don't really have a super deep voice, but I just see myself as a raspy, deep voice having bitch.
I get that. I talk really gay, but it is what it is. I am who I am, right? But yeah, so you also mentioned that you're a music artist in nightlife and stuff like that. So you did mention that that's where you started to see yourself. Like, I'm wondering, did the music come out of that, or how does that tie in?
Yes, I transitioned writing my first music project. And my first music project was entitled Edge Slayer because my music name is Edge Slayer. That's like my DJ and artist name. And yeah, like I wrote it kind of about my transition. And Edge Slayer is like this intergalactic demoness, and she like crashes her spaceship on like Earth. And then she's like, oh my god, Earth is gonna be like so fabulous. Like, fuck the Netherverse. Like, that's where she is from, because, you know, like Sailor Moon. And she was like, fuck the Netherverse. They're like fucking awful, and everybody in the real world is like so awesome. So when she gets here, she's just like, oh my god, like, children are dying, everybody's hungry, and the power of music transitioned me into this like siren who is like calling people to their truth. And I feel like that's like what my first self-titled self-released EP was about. And then like my second release, which like I released my album last year, and it's kind of like about my like womanhood, but my trans womanhood, like dealing with like dates and like sex work, and like, you know, I feel like that's just like a time capsule of like what I was up to and like my identity. So yeah, I feel like my music has shaped my transition, but now I'm like moving away from like focusing on it in my music.
Interesting. That's interesting. I can kind of identify as a music artist myself. Like, I wrote a little bit about that, but at a certain point, it's like, oh, we're real people and we have other things to talk about. Yeah. So what's next for Edge Slayer?
Well, what's next is a rebrand, ? And I'm working on an EP right now that's going to be like kind of vastly different from like my previous releases, because I feel like so much of my music was like longing to be in a certain place, or to see myself as something, or like to want respect from boys, like, you know, things that don't matter. And now I feel like as an empowered woman, I am releasing like, you know, like grown sexy woman music, like, you know, like it's giving like strict R&B, like, ooh, I love that. Like very soulful, and like it's just a different direction. I feel like I'm just gonna be sitting in a space that a lot of Black trans women, like, and like, you know, trans women in general, like don't necessarily like sit in, because I feel like we release music to be like shocking and to get people to notice us, because a lot of times people don't want to pay attention to trans artists in the same way that they do cis artists. So I feel like it's important to like, you know, make noise and be shocking. Our lives are shocking. So a lot of the time, like, you know, like we're just really talking about these like awful things that happen to us. And I feel like my narrative now is like, you know, like I'm just like a really bad bitch. I'm like beautiful and like, you know, talented. And I'm just like sitting in my like existence right now, and I feel like that's just like such an important place for like trans people in general to explore with their art.
I love that. And speaking of breaking trans barriers, you also mentioned that you started a business, a coding business. You have the LLC. We're in the transgender entrepreneurship program together. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how, like, why coding, how did it happen, and what's the story there?
Well, it's an IT business. There will be coding as offered as the services, but it's pretty much just like an IT, like managed service provider, which is like explaining that for a person who's not into IT. It's like I would help do the things that like involve like resetting your internet and like finding out why your computer is broken, and like, you know, how to store files and where to store files, and, you know, all the boring stuff like that. And I got into IT actually because I had spent kind of like a large part of like the beginning of my transition like just being a party girl. Like I pretty much just like hosted events, I threw events. I was just like paid to go to other people's events or like host them, like, you know, like stuff like that. And then I got into like the corporate world, like, you know, and like the nonprofit world. And I just like really didn't like how they treat like trans people. And then like I really thought it was gonna be cute. I'm gonna work with other trans people. But like in capitalism, everybody's kind of awful and evil. So I'm trying to just like start a business that's like, yes, we're gonna make money, and like, you know, the point is to like, you know, get a coin, like a really nice coin, but I also want to educate other trans people, other sex workers, other queer people on how to do like, you know, base IT work, like help desk. So I really want to give trans people like a place where they can say if they like do a program, get certified, there's like somewhere they can go for an entry level job. Cause like there was nowhere to go for me. Like after I finished like all of my studying, there was just like these places, and you know, they would want to hire you for diversity, but then it's just not a safe environment for trans people because there's transphobia, or like say they don't get, you know, the tea about me, and so they are just transphobic around me, which is just like, you know, not good for my trans mental health. Right. So I started this business to literally like help myself out of like doing survival sex work and, you know, doing something that I want to do for money. And I feel like that's like not usually something trans people have access to. We usually like have to do whatever you have to do for money.
That's beautiful. Well, I'll definitely be hitting you up because I'm in my dumb blonde era and I don't know what any of that means. But definitely it's an issue that affects everyone.
No, yes. People don't know how much IT help they actually need as a small business. And we're just doing small and medium-sized businesses.
So when do you think, you know, when's your launch date? How can people find you? Tell us everything.
Well, my company is called Cybernetworks LLC. And you can find me at cybernetworks.tech. And the launch date is like, we're accepting clients now. So, you know, if you need some IT, get at me. But we will be officially launched in August.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, what is something that you wish that you could go back in time and tell your younger self? Because it sounds like, I mean, you've kind of been through a lot of different areas, right? And not a lot of people get to see so many sides of the world.
No,
So what would you tell somebody who might be in the same position?
Bitch, if you can think about it and you can dream about it, you can fucking do it, bitch. You can do anything that you want to motherfucking do because you are a bad bitch and you should have been doing whatever you wanted to do from jump. So, you know, just keep on doing whatever you want to do, and then also continue to be yourself because you don't have to change for any person at all.
Love that. And the last question I have, which I ask everybody, is what is your trans agenda?
My trans agenda is laying all the girls' wigs. Cause, you know, sometimes I feel like, you know, we be showing up and the wig be coming late or early. And I want it to be on time.
I love that. Thank you so much for stopping by. That was amazing.
Of course. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Trans individuals face unique challenges every day. From accessing healthcare to navigating legal systems, it is crucial that we work towards creating a society that is inclusive and supportive of people of all gender identities. This means advocating for policies and practices that prioritize the health and well-being of trans individuals, as well as challenging discriminatory attitudes and behaviors where they exist. By coming together to support and uplift trans voices, we can create a brighter and more equitable future for everyone. Thank you for listening, and let us continue to work towards a world where trans individuals can thrive. Follow us on all social media platforms at Trans Clinique, and don't forget to like this video and hit the subscribe button.